Hey everybody, how are you doing? It's great to see you today. It's Tim with you one more time on our journey through the Bible. Today, our reading was in 1 Samuel 14, 15, and 16. When a light bulb in your house burns out, that doesn't mean it's time to buy a new house. You just replace the old light bulb with one that's working. Uh, in the same way, there are times when a Christian who doesn't do the job God has given him may be replaced with someone who will complete God's will. God uses people by His grace, and yet we're all replaceable. None of us are that important. And I think that's what we see going on when you get to chapter 15 in our reading. In chapter 15, God gave Saul a specific assignment. You need to eliminate the Amalekites, totally destroy man, woman, and child, their cattle, and burn everything that'll burn. And that's not what happened. They did win a victory, but not quite. They didn't destroy everything. Some people took some loot home with them. The best of the cattle they brought back, and Saul's excuse was, we can use these for sacrifices. That's what God likes. He commanded sacrifices to be made, and we've got this cattle that we had brought back for sacrifice. Um, well, Samuel went looking for King Saul. He'd been up all night praying, I think probably asking God to give this king another chance. And it's easy for us to look at our failure as a failure for the Lord, but it wasn't the Lord that failed. It was Saul, and it's time to replace him. In verse 12, we're told that Samuel went to Carmel. He's told Saul is there to set up a place for himself. And this was not a new palace, by the way, the place that he set up, but it was a kind of monument to honor himself. You see, time has passed, the years have gone on, and Saul has changed from the humble young man who described himself as the least in his father's house, and now he's the mighty king, and he's enjoying the praise of his people, and he believes every word of it. It's easy, isn't it, for a man to be blessed by God and then start thinking, I am pretty good at this after all. That's where Saul was in his own thinking. And Samuel finally found Saul, and his response was, I've obeyed the word of the Lord. In verse 16 of this chapter, Samuel gave King Saul God's view of what happened. He said, Stay, and I will tell thee what the Lord hath said to me this night. And he said to him, Say on. And Samuel said, When thou wast little in thine own sight, wast thou not made head of the tribes of Israel, and the Lord anointed thee king over Israel? The Lord sent thee on a journey and said, Go and utterly destroy the sinners of the Amalekites, fight against them until they be consumed. Wherefore then didst thou not obey the voice of the Lord, but didst fly upon the spoil and did evil in the sight of the Lord? And Saul kept insisting, No, I have obeyed what God told me to do. Okay, maybe not completely. There were survivors. I brought the king back, and we brought some cattle and goods back with us. But in general, I've obeyed the word of the Lord. Isn't that good enough for him? And Samuel's response in verse 22 was, Hath the Lord his great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifice, as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. And because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he also hath rejected thee from being king. You see, Saul needed to learn that partial obedience is disobedience. God is not interested in another religious ritual performed by someone who doesn't obey him. He is not interested in a king who will not lead people in obedience to the Lord. It has to start at the top with him. Now, at this point, King Saul should have resigned, handed the crown over to Samuel, gone back to farming. But, oh no. Now he liked the job of being the king. It's good to be the king. And he was not willing to step down even if God himself revealed that that was his will. He called it obedience, but the truth was he was no longer interested in God's will. There's a lesson to be learned here, my friends. Don't make the mistake of thinking that you can overlook the Lord's commands or make up for partial obedience or disobedience by claiming that you love the Lord. You know what Jesus told us in John 14:15? He said, if you love me, keep my commandments. In John chapter 15 and verse 10, our Savior said, if you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. He set the example of obedience, and he said, if you love me, this is what you will do. Well, give that some thought today. Consider it, then stay with your reading. Our reading for tomorrow is 2 chapters, 1 Samuel 17 and 18. Dig into those, and I'll be looking forward to being back with you again tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody. Hope to see you again.